In the second episode of Typhoon Family, Lee Joon-ho delivers a performance that redefines emotional intensity in modern Korean drama. The sequence that unfolds midway through the episode is not simply a dramatic highlight, it is the structural and thematic turning point of the entire series. It sets the emotional tone, reveals the psychological depth of his character, and establishes the storm of human conflict that the rest of the drama will navigate. With measured restraint and precise acting choices, Joon-ho constructs a moment that is both devastatingly quiet and deeply unsettling. The episode opens with the aftermath of unresolved tension from the premiere. His character, who had appeared to hold everything under control, begins to crack beneath the surface. The writers set up the scene with deceptive simplicity: a family meal, an argument, and a revelation. But the emotional charge embedded in every line of dialogue transforms a domestic setting into a battlefield of suppressed resentment. Joon-ho's character, the middle child who has long rejected the traditional obligations of family life, finds himself cornered by truths he has tried to ignore. From the beginning, the direction guides the audience to focus on stillness, a contrast to the chaos of emotions unfolding inside the room. Joon-ho sits at the table, his expression unreadable. He barely speaks, yet the silence is heavier than any confrontation. The cinematography mirrors this pressure: slow zooms, long takes, and static framing that force the viewer to watch every flicker of discomfort. This is not performance through movement or volume, it is performance through control. As the argument escalates, another family member exposes a hidden betrayal that directly implicates Joon-ho's character. His detachment collapses. The transition from calm to volatility happens with no warning, no exaggerated cues. One moment he seems composed, the next his voice breaks mid-sentence, not from anger, but from exhaustion. The outburst that follows is restrained yet sharp, the kind that leaves silence ringing afterward. It's a reaction that feels lived in, not scripted, as though the actor and character become indistinguishable for that instant. The writing in this episode captures the delicate balance between exposure and restraint. Every word seems to hover between confession and accusation. The audience witnesses a man being dismantled by the weight of his own past decisions. The emotional climax comes when Joon-ho's character finally stops defending himself and begins to listen. That moment, brief, wordless, is where the scene reaches its full power. It's not the breakdown that defines the climax, it's the pause after it. Joon-ho looks at his family with recognition, not rage. The close-up lingers, revealing an expression that's both blank and overflowing with meaning. It is the embodiment of defeat, not in a physical sense, but a psychological one, the realization that denial no longer protects him. The camera doesn't cut away. It lets the silence linger until the audience feels the same suffocating weight as the character. This sequence has been widely discussed among critics and viewers not because of its scale, but because of its authenticity. There are no tears, no overly dramatic monologues. The emotion lives in the absence of expression, in the control, the hesitation, the stillness that hides an internal collapse. Lee Joon-ho's ability to convey that kind of tension demonstrates his maturity as an actor. He doesn't perform emotion, he embodies its restraint. What makes the climax even more significant is how it redefines the narrative trajectory of Typhoon Family. Until that point, the drama seems to follow the familiar rhythm of familial tension and reconciliation. But after the scene, it becomes something else, a psychological dissection of guilt, responsibility, and inherited trauma. Joon-ho's breakdown marks the beginning of his character's unraveling. From that moment, every decision he makes carries the shadow of that dinner table confrontation. The script places this emotional peak early in the story for a reason. It establishes the emotional vocabulary of the series. Rather than building toward one final explosion at the end, Typhoon Family positions its most revealing moment at the start, forcing the audience to live in the aftermath. The emotional fallout from episode 2 becomes the foundation for everything that follows. Each interaction, each line of dialogue, is haunted by the memory of that confrontation. Behind the scenes, reports suggest that the sequence was filmed over 2 days. The production intentionally shot it chronologically, allowing the actors to carry the exhaustion of each take into the next. Joon-ho reportedly asked for minimal direction, preferring to approach the scene with instinct rather than precision. This method paid off. The scene feels raw, unpolished, and dangerously real. Cinematically, the lighting plays a crucial role. The scene begins in bright, warm tones, reflecting the illusion of normalcy. As the tension builds, the lighting subtly shifts, shadows grow sharper. The background darkens, and the colors drain until the room feels smaller. This gradual visual constriction parallels Joon-ho's psychological suffocation. By the time he speaks his final line, the entire frame feels compressed, as if the air has been pulled out of the space. The power of this episode lies not in shock, but in recognition. Audiences don't watch a melodramatic explosion. They witness a painfully familiar human reaction, the moment someone realizes they can no longer hide from the truth. It's the kind of emotional realism that K-dramas rarely allow to unfold without exaggeration. Typhoon Family breaks that pattern by grounding its emotion in observation, not spectacle. Joon-ho's performance is particularly effective because of its rhythm. His pauses are precise. His voice fluctuates between calm and fracture with no warning. His eyes reveal the inner conflict of someone torn between pride and vulnerability. This control creates tension, keeping the audience waiting for a release that never fully comes. Instead of closure, the scene offers discomfort, a discomfort that lingers long after the episode ends. One of the most compelling aspects of his performance in episode 2 is how it reframes the character's identity. Before this, he appears as the detached son, pragmatic, distant, composed. After the climax, the viewer begins to see the cracks in that facade. Every later action and decision gains new meaning because the audience now understands the fracture beneath his surface. It's not just character development. It's a redefinition of who he is and what he represents within the family dynamic. From a thematic perspective, the climax embodies the core idea of Typhoon Family, the illusion of control amid chaos. The series doesn't present emotional collapse as weakness, but as an inevitable consequence of long-suppressed truth. Joon-ho's breakdown isn't a loss of strength, it's the moment his humanity reemerges. The tension between self-control and emotional exposure becomes the driving force of the show. Throughout the remainder of the episode, the silence that follows the climax becomes its own character. No one in the family speaks openly about what happened, yet the entire atmosphere changes. Every future interaction is defined by what was revealed in that moment. The series uses this silence as a storytelling device. The argument doesn't resolve, no apologies are exchanged, and no reconciliation follows. Instead, the characters simply sit in silence, each processing the damage in their own way. The lack of closure leaves the audience in the same emotional space as the characters, uncertain, reflective, and uneasy. From an acting perspective, Lee Joon-ho's work in episode 2 represents the mastery of control. Emotional outbursts are easy to perform. Suppression is far more complex. He manages to communicate inner turmoil without relying on visible breakdowns. His eyes shift slightly when confronted, his breathing changes, his posture stiffens. Each small detail communicates the depth of conflict. This level of subtlety demonstrates why he continues to be recognized not just as a celebrity, but as an actor with serious craft. By the end of the episode, his character sits alone, surrounded by remnants of the dinner table. The frame widens, showing him isolated but still within the same physical space he tried to escape. The message is clear. He cannot leave the storm he helped create. The visual metaphor reinforces the title of the series. Typhoon Family is not about escape, but endurance. This episode is a defining moment in Lee Joon-ho's acting career. It shows how emotional resonance can emerge not from intensity, but from precision. The way he constructs silence, the way he holds stillness, the way he allows discomfort to occupy space, all contribute to a performance that feels deeply authentic. In a landscape saturated with melodrama, Typhoon Family stands out for its emotional discipline. The second episode, anchored by Junho's performance, transforms what could have been a simple argument into a profound psychological study. It reminds viewers that emotional climaxes do not always arrive through shouting or tears. Sometimes, they arrive in the quiet acceptance that something has irreversibly changed. And as the screen fades to black, the audience is left with a lingering question: what happens after the storm? That uncertainty, born from Lee Junho's restrained yet powerful portrayal, is what keeps viewers watching, analyzing, and remembering. Episode 2 of Typhoon Family doesn't just move the story forward. It defines the emotional landscape for everything that follows. And Lee Junho, with a performance marked by restraint and precision, ensures that this moment will be remembered as one of the most powerful scenes in his career, a masterclass in subtle emotional storytelling that leaves the audience shaken not by spectacle, but by truth.